Hello, welcome to a presentation I call The 9 Dimensions of Project Management. Now, project management could be many things to different people. Some people believe in straight ahead, get it done concepts. Let's stop beating about the bush with all the tools, all the fancy techniques out there. Let's just get stuff done. And I can't blame people for thinking like that. After all, project management has existed for quite a while. Talk about the pyramids of Giza back in 2560 BC. Look at that great endeavor. How did they get it done? It wasn't with the Microsoft projects of this world or the SAPs or the Primaveras, but those are all good tools and additions to solid project management understanding. So don't get sidetracked when you are trying to understand what the end game of project management is. The end game is to deliver working product, results that the customer wants, and requirements in the deliverable. That's really what the customer's looking for. So don't get sidetracked with all the talk about tools and techniques. Those are important as well, but they all rest on an underlying theory. A great project manager is one who can get stuff done, not one who can use tools and techniques and pass exams. Lots of academics can do that. But when you talk about the pragmatic approach to project management, the big question is, are you delivering? Or are you just getting certified? Can you create change? Are you a change agent? That's the big question. Take a look at the Great Wall of China, 206 BC. There wasn't Primavera or MS Project. There were no PMP exams, but people through sheer doggedness, determination, and common sense got stuff done. So when you think about project management, think back in time. Take a trip down to New York or Boston, take a look at the architecture. Go overseas, go to Europe, take a look at what was done years ago, even before the PMI or the Scrum Alliance or the Agile Alliance was formed. People were getting stuff done. Now we can get stuff done more intelligently, hopefully. We've got a lot more techniques and tools. So the expectation is great project management should be the bedrock, the foundation. That ability to get it done, that ability to understand what the customer wants. And then with the fancy tools and the certifications, we can enhance our approach to project management. But you cannot fake it. You either have the get it done mindset or you're faking it. And tools and techniques won't help you. Back in time, stuff was being done. How about wine production way back in 6000 BC? People were getting stuff done. So when you look back in ancient history, you can see across time similar elements in project management for managing resources, managing a schedule, coordinating different groups. All this stuff is used today. Now, of course, we're not talking about the optimal scheduling and resource leveling and all that, but there were some basic foundational concepts. Manage resources, manage time, coordinate groups, and I dare say, don't gold plate. So in my world, great project management is not great because of software tools. It is made great because of the great minds and attitudes of the people behind the tools. When you look back in the late 19th century, a great example of project management is the Transcontinental Railroad project. Take a look. You see the blue line coming from the east, meeting the red line coming from the west. How on earth were they able to pull that off? Well, they did. It was officially started by President Lincoln, and people thought, you guys are crazy. Can you actually do this? But one person believed in it, and he made it happen. They used to call him Crazy Judah. But he made it happen. And you can read about this. You can read about this. Just Google the Transcontinental Railroad project. Read more about it. But the big thing is they got stuff done. There was a team of blacksmiths, carpenters, engineers, masons, surveyors, teamsters, cooks. How did they coordinate this huge endeavor? Project management. Without the fancy bells and whistles we have today. Now take a look at page 43 in today's Project Management Body of Knowledge Guide. The PMBOK Guide 4th edition breaks down project management into 5 process groups and 9 knowledge areas. So let's take a look at the process groups up top. Now, the reason why I'm sharing this is lots of people are lost about understanding project management in the PMBOK. And they are overwhelmed with the inputs and the tools and the outputs. But let's calm down. Let's break it down into bare bones, common sense, a great approach to managing projects in an organic way without getting sidetracked with the multiple ITTOs. So let's go. Initiating. What do we do here? The project is kicked off. It's authorized in a formal way. That's what this is all about in initiating, right up here. You can see where the mouse pointer is? That's initiating. We develop a charter. The charter, think of it as a simple document. Now, on some projects, there are no charters, and some projects, there are huge charters. But I would like you to think about a charter as a one-pager. One-page document that has the name of the project manager, the name of the sponsor or initiator, high-level description of the project, high-level risks, high-level milestones, high-level assumptions, high-level constraints, all that stuff. Put that into a one-pager. Sign it, get it signed by the sponsor, and you have got your charter. Let's forget about the multiple inputs and the enterprise environmental factors and organizational process assets for change. Let's focus on what we're trying to do. We're trying to come out with a one-pager that authorizes you, the project manager, to apply resources to projects. Now, I like to think about it as a one-pager because there's just too much information for a beginner to truly understand what's going on. So think about it. You want to authorize a project. You want the project manager to feel empowered. You want people to recognize the project. Get a charter. The other thing we do in initiating is we identify our stakeholders, and we come out with a list of our stakeholders, some additional descriptions about where they are, their location, their phone number, their interest in the project. Are they a neutral type of stakeholder, or are they a negative stakeholder that looks for failure of the project? Are they a positive stakeholder that want the project to succeed? What is their level of power? What is their level of influence? End of story. All the rest are embellishments. And I'm not going to go into those because I'm trying to give you a quick understanding of the project management body of knowledge guide and project management in general. So think about initiating in two ways. I'm developing a charter and I'm identifying who the project could impact and who could impact the project. End of initiating. Let's move on to planning. What do we do in planning? Well, there's a laundry list of things. Before I show you the laundry list, I'm going to run through them very quickly. What do we do when we are planning a project? In the real world, we think about different things. What does the client want? If it's an internal client, what do they want? If it's an external client, what do they want? You need to get that stuff documented. And we call those requirements. Simple requirements. Now, the project management body of knowledge guide refers to this as requirements documentation. But think about it like this. I like to think about my requirements as a simple document, be it a table in Word or a table in Excel that itemizes what the clients want in each module, be it software. Maybe it's a hardware project. What do they want? If it's a building, what do they want? You're trying to document what does the stakeholder want? What does my major customer want? And you come out with your requirements, but your requirements should also be signed off on. They should be approved. You don't just make up requirements and say, well, I think this will work for the client. You don't do that. So you plan how you're going to collect those requirements, and then you indeed collect the requirements. What else do we do here? We also plan the scope. What is in the project and what is outside? Scope management. What else do? We develop a schedule. What else? We come out with a budget. What else? We think about any quality standards that we need to adhere to. We think about any governing bodies, like the FDA, for example, or OSHA, whatever you're working on. You want to think about quality. You also want to think about, in instances like construction, you might want to think about health and safety standards and so on. That is all about maintaining a high level of quality on the project, not just in the product, but also on the project. So you're thinking about all those dimensions. In human resource management, you're developing a plan for how to acquire your team, how to develop them, how to manage them. You also think about a dimension of communication. Who am I communicating with all throughout the project? Who are my team members communicating with? Why do they need communication at this point? Is it overkill? Are we overdoing it? Maybe we need to plan for one meeting every month. So you're tailoring the client's needs to what you have available. Yes, you've got communication, you've got reports. You can churn out reports till the cows come home, but you don't want to overwhelm your clients with too much information. So you need to plan and streamline it. Let's move into risk management. What are we doing here? We are managing the effect of uncertainty on our project. So we come out with a risk management plan, and we also come out with what we call a risk register that documents possible uncertainty, things that could go wrong that we need to plan for. So just in case this happens, what will we do? Or what will we do to prevent this from happening? Risk management. And then finally, procurement management. We think about what we need from an external source, be it a vendor, be it someone who will sell you something on the project. It could be a short-term one-off, it could be a long-term relationship with that vendor. But in procurement, you plan how you're going to procure the stuff, and then you actually begin to carry it out in procurement. But in planning procurements, this is where you put all the plan together. So planning is huge. It's really big. And there are 20 things that you do, 20 processes. I'm not going to go into every single one in this section, but I'll show them to you later on. In executing, what are we doing? We are simply taking the plan of action, carrying out the plan, getting stuff done, making sure that as the work is being done, it's being done right. In monitoring and controlling, as the work is being done, you're getting deliverables, you're getting results. You want to ensure that those results are exactly what you intended them to be at the very beginning. When you are monitoring and controlling, you are also ensuring that scope is not growing. You're making sure that scope is not enlarged beyond that which was approved. You're making sure that if a scope change needs to happen, it needs to be funneled through the right process to do that. You want to make sure that your schedule is not going off. You're making sure that people are not throwing in additional time into the schedule. You want to make sure that your SPI values, now I'm going into some deep waters here, like Schedule Performance Index. Basically, it's a measurement of how well you are performing schedule-wise. You want to make sure that doesn't deviate too far from 1. We also have what we call the Cost Performance Index, CPI. You want to make sure it doesn't deviate from 1. All of these are indicators of how well you are performing and whether you need to step up your control or not, whether you need to maintain your current project management performance or whether you need to step it up. Also here we think about quality control. We've come out with a final deliverable. Can we validate it internally before sending it out? That's what you do in monitoring and controlling. You also are involved in sending out reports, making sure that the vendor is doing what they said they would do, and making sure you're doing what you said you would do. Let's move into closing. In closing, there are 2 things to think about. You're either closing out a phase, and a phase is a subsection of a project. You could break a project down into little phases. So you can either close out a phase, or you could close out the whole project. Now, before you close out the whole project, you need to close procurement. And procurement, referring to contracts with vendors, all the paperwork, all that information, need to make sure that everything that you need from the vendor is obtained, and you need to ensure that you do your lessons learned with your vendor, find out what you could have done better, give them feedback on what they could have done better, close out the procurement, and then close out the project as a whole. Now, on one project, you could have several different procurements. You could have 10, 20, 30, 50, 100. So the order of things is you close out your procurements, you close out phases, and you close out the whole project when you get done. Now, what have I talked about? I've talked about the 5 process groups. Let's take a look at some other dimensions to project management. On the left-hand side, you will see 9 areas of knowledge. Integration management. What What is integration management? It's the ability to coordinate, the ability to unify and combine different aspects of project management to come out with your final deliverable. Scope management is all about controlling scope, making sure people don't add extras, and making sure that every single thing the client said they wanted at the beginning is done. In time management, we are ensuring that the schedule we develop is controlled. We're making sure we don't deviate from it. If the schedule needs to be lengthened, we're going to go through the right approach to do that, which is called the Perform Integrated Change Control process. Let's go into the next knowledge area, cost management. What are we doing here? 3 things. We're coming out with estimates for each activity. And that's really what we do. We define activities in time management, but in cost management, we are actually going to estimate how much each activity will cost. So think about it like this. In scope management, we have a huge mass of work. In time management, we've broken it down into smaller pieces called activities. And in cost management, we assign values of how much each activity will cost. In cost management, we also roll up those activity amounts into a final budget. And in cost management, we also control our cost. Make sure that we're not going over. In quality management, I've told you we plan quality. We also ensure that we are doing the work the right way. We call that quality assurance. And we also ensure that the final deliverable is good to go to the client. The client can then make up their mind if it's good to go for them or not. In HR, human resource management, we acquire our project team, develop the project team, and manage the project team. In communications, we plan how to communicate and then we communicate, be it face-to-face or reports or what have you. In risk management, we manage uncertainty. And in procurement management, we manage everything from planning what we need to actually getting what we need from a vendor, incorporating it into a final project, and getting the final deliverable done. On some monster projects, you could have several different vendors managing different aspects, different phases of the project. Some projects, you're not even laying a finger to do any of the work. It's being done by vendors. And that's why procurement management in some companies is really huge, really big. You need to be aware of who to choose, get the right vendor, and make sure that they give you exactly what you want. So that is the knowledge areas. So what have I talked about so far? 5 process groups, 9 knowledge areas. Take a look here. You can see in the gray and white boxes, we call those processes. So there are 5 process groups at the top, 9 knowledge areas at the side, and 42 processes in the middle. Now, I'll just give you a heads up. If you're watching this after June to September 2013, this stuff is not what the exam will be based on. The PMP exam is changing in 2013 between June to September. Don't have the exact date now, but it's changing. And you will have more knowledge areas. In fact, you'll have 10 of them. You're going to have more processes as well. So bear in mind, this stuff is going to change. It changes every 4 years, thereabouts. But when you look down vertically in the process group, what do you see? Develop project charter, developing a charter to authorize the project, and identify stakeholders. That's exactly what I talked about a few minutes ago. So it's not that abstract, is it? When I talked about planning, I mentioned lots of things. But one thing I will point out to you is lots of the outputs that we get as we are going through planning, we assemble them in a process called Develop Project Management Plan. So when you hear the term project plan, don't think they're talking about an MS project schedule. That's not what they're talking about. Or at least that's not what they should be talking about. They should be talking about an all-inclusive plan which combines baselines such as your cost baseline, your schedule baseline, your scope baseline, and lots of subsidiary plans. These are little plans for managing various areas of knowledge. For example, scope management plan, schedule management plan, cost management plan, quality management plan, process improvement plan, human resource plan, communications management plan, risk management plan, procurement management plan, and so on and so forth. In fact, you might want to check page 350 in the current version of the PMBOK Guide, the PMBOK Guide 4th edition. Now, going into executing, we can see we've got direct and managed project execution, which is a high-level process which combines all of the other processes in executing to ensure that the project is executed properly. Monitoring and controlling, you can see all of those processes there. We've talked about all those. And closing, close project or phase, and close procurements. That is the high level of project management. So, how can you apply this knowledge to help you in the real world? Initiate your project. Make sure that you're recognized. Make sure that other people understand what your project is trying to achieve. You don't want to bore them with reams of paper, so make it short, make it sweet, make it brief. In planning, you plan. Come out with a project management plan, even if it's a 2-pager. Many a time, project managers get sidetracked with trying to churn out huge amounts of documentation, but it's the quality that matters. You've ever heard of the 80-20 rule? The 80-20 principle, Pareto's law? Well, I dare say that 20% of the processes are responsible for 80% of the gains on any project. Also, 20% of the ITTOs will give you an 80% gain in some of these processes. I tell you the truth. Expert judgment, for example, will pay off huge if only project managers would not be scared of enlisting expert judgment from people that have it, not them. What about executing? To execute, don't just sit down, get up, walk around, engage in management by walking around and ensure that stuff is being done. Pick up the phone, go down the hallway. Don't just sit down throwing reports out, project manager. Get up and move. Roll up your sleeves. Get your hands dirty. Don't say, oh yeah, my project coordinator or my BA is taking care of that and I couldn't care less. Get up and make stuff happen. Monitoring and controlling is the same thing. It's a practical thing. You have to be on your best game. How about closing? Don't just close out the project. Get historical information archived. Get lessons learned. Do a post-mortem analysis. File that information away. That's what I'm talking about. That's how you make project management pragmatic. There are too many Pop-Tart project managers running around claiming to be PMPs, CAPMs, PGMPs, whatever they call themselves. Yes, we know that you have demonstrated that you have knowledge, but are you practicalizing the knowledge? What are you doing? Are you a change agent? Are you just sitting down there in your company? You're not managing projects the right way. People are doing whatever they like. If you're a Scrum Master and you are in an organization and you know that Scrum would be a better approach to managing projects, hey, it's all about accountability. You need to make change. So while I'm sharing this, I'm not just talking to people who use the waterfall approach or the SDLC. I'm talking to everyone. If you are planning, plan solid. If you are initiating a solid fashion. Come out with great and innovative ideas. Take them to the change board or the management. Let them think about your ideas. Let them implement your ideas. And start making stuff happen. Because project managers are change agents, or at least they should be. Lots of them are not. They feel they're just told by management what to do, and that's the wrong approach. So, that is the high-level 40,000-foot view of project management. I'm going to begin to very, very rapidly dive into all of these 42 areas of knowledge. So hold on, look very carefully. I call them 9 dimensions of project management. Now soon, I'm going to have to update this and make this the 10 dimensions of project management. Let me make this the 9 dimensions of project management. So we already know, hopefully, what a project is. It's a temporary endeavor. It's undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. Has a start date and an end date. And it's non-repetitive. Hopefully we understand that. We know that a project is different from an operation in that an operation goes on and a project does not. What is project management? In my world, it's all about getting stuff done. But to get stuff done, you need to apply knowledge, skills, tools, techniques, passion, common sense to project activities to produce a deliverable. So let's demystify project management a little bit. I call them dimensions. They're just dimensions. Different dimensions of what you need to do to get your project sorted. That's really all it is. So let's think about this for a while. I know I've talked about this, but do you remember? We talked about integration management. Being able to coordinate, unify, and combine the different processes and elements on your project. Scope management. Coming out with a defined scope statement. A statement that defines, customer, this is what I gather you are looking for. Is it right? The customer says yes, and it's signed off and approved and etched in stone. That's scope management. In scope management, we also talk about a work breakdown structure. Now, that work breakdown structure looks very much like a family tree, but the boxes represent various hierarchies of work. And when you think about work, I want you to think about hours of work. 5-hour boxes, 10-hour boxes. You've seen that family tree with those boxes that represent people. But in the WBS, the work breakdown structure, it represents work. And that work is broken down further in time management into activities, and in cost management, we assign activity costs to each of those line items called tasks or activities, and then we roll up the final amount to get our budget. Quality management, I talked about that. We identify quality standards that need to be adhered to in the project or in the product. Human resource management is about acquiring your team, developing your team, managing your team. Communications management is all about coming out with a solid plan for communications and actually carrying out that plan. Risk management is all about coming out with a risk management plan and executing the plan and making sure that you have accounted for all identified risks, whether you're putting them on a watch list, whether you're actually going to take some action ahead of time. It's all risk management. And procurement management, procuring services or additional things that you need to get your project done. Those are the 9 dimensions. Now let's break that down even further. Integration management. Now, remember I showed you that table? Now we're looking at the different lines, so we're thinking in a horizontal fashion. First dimension, project integration management. This is simply about overall project coordination skills. That's what it's all about. So when we talk about integration management, we're talking about coming out with a well-defined purpose in a document that people can understand. In integration, we're also talking about developing a solid project management plan. In integration management, the project manager needs to be aware of and make sure that this ability comes out, needs to be aware of the ability to direct work and ensure that he or she is actually directing the work. Making sure that he or she is actually on top of things. Making sure that they are facilitating meaningful change. Not just any change thrown at the project, but meaningful change that actually adds value to the customer. When the customer asks for a change, you don't just shut them down, you assess. You make recommendations to the change control board that approves or rejects the change. And the ability to hand off the project and make profitable conclusions. That's really what integration management is all about. So these are the things we do here. We develop a charter, we develop a project management plan, we direct and manage project execution, we monitor and control project work, we perform integrated change control with the change control board to make sure that all changes are funneled through the CCB. The project manager just doesn't make the changes in isolation and doesn't make the final call either. And then we go to close project or phase, which is about closing out a project or phase. So that's the first dimension. Those are the things that are done in the real world, we might call them something different. That's really what it is. Scope management. In scope management, it's all about our ability to scope out requirements and all the work involved, making sure that nothing slips through the cracks or nothing gets shoved in midway and doesn't get accounted for cost-wise. So in scope management, we're talking about the ability to collect requirements, to create a document that defines the project completely, the ability to create a WBS and to get sign-off from customers at phase gates or phase exits, and I'm talking about the verify scope process, which you'll see in a minute, and the ability to control the project from scope creep. Alright, so let's take a look at how these dimensions look. Taking a look at scope management, looking at the dimensions that revolve around the dimension of scope management, we've got 5 of them. The first one is collect requirements, the next one is define scope, the next one is create WBS, the next one is verify scope, and the last one is control scope. Time management, it's all about the schedule, the ability to schedule the project in an accurate and meaningful fashion. How do you schedule the project? You use the folks who are doing the work. You don't make a best guess in isolation. You get the people doing the work to tell you how long it will take. So in time management, we are breaking down the project into tasks. We're sequencing the tasks. We are ensuring that a great understanding is acquired of the resources and the duration for each task. And then we build a final schedule and we control the schedule, driving it to completion. So let's take a look at this dimension. Time management surrounded by 5 processes here: define activities, sequence activities, estimate activity resources, estimate activity durations, develop schedule, and control schedule. When you look at these dimensions, don't get confused thinking, oh, we have to do every single thing as the PMI says in strict order. So I need to integrate first, then I need to carry out scope, then I need to carry out time. No, 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 no. Let's not be silly. That's not how it works. We all know how things work in the real world. Lots of overlap. In fact, some people start off by saying, oh, I've got a great idea for a project. I wonder how long it will take, without even really breaking down the work. There's nothing wrong in that. It's just taking a look at the project at a high level and saying, does it even make sense to do this? Knowing how long it will take. Maybe by the time we get there, someone's already out with it or technology's moved on. Different things to think about. Okay? So when you think about these dimensions, they don't happen in strict order. There is a lot of overlap in the dimensions and in the processes. Cost management is all about determining a truthful and accurate project budget. So we're trying to estimate cost and get a final budget and control the costs. This is how it looks. 3 things: estimating your cost, determining your budget, and controlling your cost. So that budget needs to be controlled. We need to make sure we're spending it the right way. Next dimension is quality management. This is all about our ability to ensure that all identified project and product quality standards are met. So 3 things. We need to plan which standards we need to adhere to. We need to identify these standards. And then we need to ensure that the work on the project, be it coding, be it carrying out a test, be it building something, we need to make sure that all these things are being done the right way. And then when we come out with a final deliverable, we need to ensure that there is quality, requested quality in the final deliverable. Okay? So those are our dimensions right there: plan quality, perform quality assurance, and perform quality control. Human resource management. It's all about flawless execution of all project human resource management activities. So we're planning, how are we going to acquire the team? And then we actually acquire the team in this area. We develop the team, we manage the team. So we've got 4 dimensions here: develop human resource plan, acquire project team, develop project team, and manage project team. In communications management, it's all about flawless communication at all levels. Not just within the project team, not just within the stakeholders, or not just within the customers. We're talking about across every dimension that could exist for communication on the project. Okay? So, all stakeholders, we need to identify all of them. After we identify all of them, we need to plan how to communicate with them, why we're going to communicate with them, understand the why of it, and then we need to begin to communicate. We need to report to them. We need to manage their expectations. So 5 dimensions here: identifying our stakeholders, planning communications, distributing the information, managing stakeholder expectations, and reporting on performance. To do the report performance process, you need to actually have those reports as an output. So report performance gives you reports. And then in distribute information, we actually distribute some of these reports. Risk management, the ability to manage the known and the unknown. How do we go about this? 6 things we need to do. Plan how to manage risks. Then identify the risks. Then analyze and prioritize the risks, both qualitatively and in some cases where you need to, not every single case, you can analyze them quantitatively in dollars. Now let's get real. Let's get real. How many people have actually done this on a project? How many of you have had to quantitatively analyze risks? Probably not. Probably not. But for the exam, you do need to know this. Typical question will be, which of these steps is optional? It's step 4. Step 5, we plan our responses to the risks. And 6, we monitor and control the risks once we are neck deep in the work. And we make sure that things are still going according to plan. So let's take a look at what the 6 formal names are for these processes. We have plan risk management, identify risks, perform qualitative risk analysis, perform quantitative risk analysis, plan risk responses, and monitor and control risks. Now bear in mind, these names may slightly change in future editions of the PMBOK guide. In procurement management, what are we doing here? In procurement management, we need to know what and when to purchase and how to involve and manage vendors. So there are 4 things that we need to think about. What do I need to purchase? Why and when? We need to coordinate the bidding and the vendor selection process. We need to effectively manage the vendor once the vendor is selected or the vendors are selected. And we need to effectively close contracts. So very quickly, these 4 different processes are plan procurements, conduct procurements, administer procurements, and close procurements. And that is the 9 dimensions of project management and the 42 processes of project management covered for you in under an hour. Now, don't be deceived. This stuff I've shared with you is absolutely heavy. If you can master, understand, tie down these principles, if you can do that, you'll be king of the hill. Because passing the PMP exam is about understanding the total framework, not about cramming inputs, tools, and techniques and outputs. No, not at all. Passing the PMP or the CAPM exam, both of which I've taken, I can tell you it revolves around a firm understanding of the 9 knowledge areas, the 5 process groups, and all of the processes within this table here. Okay? So this is really big. Now, you might feel you're too busy with your work to get down and take the PMP exam or the CAPM. Well, let me tell you about the Project Management Audio Digest. There's a lot more. There's over 70 hours of video online that you could watch. And also on DVD as well. Lots of video. So if you're struggling on your own, trying to take the PMP exam, struggling on your own, get wise, get smart. Go to www.praizion.com. Take a look at the materials that are there. These materials have helped scores of folks pass the PMP exam, the CAPM exam, and just get educated in project management. So the Project Management Audio Digest pack has a book, it has 12 CDs, it has 47 flashcards, and it has a plethora of information online that you could never possibly go through. I'm talking about quizzes, mock exams, games, ridiculously interesting lab exercises, stuff that will take you to a whole new level in your project management walk. Now, get smart. These exams cost money. Doing them multiple times is not what you want to do. You want to ace the test. So what are you waiting for? Put some investment behind your endeavor to get certified. Don't get sidetracked with the cheap, very dodgy, I'd call them, quizzes online. Some of those quizzes are outdated. Some of those quizzes, I tell you, they made those quizzes in the dark ages. And they're free, all right, but they're really dangerous. So what am I telling you to do? Invest in yourself. Think about your project management journey. Get tooled up. Get wired. Don't be a Pop-Tart PMP or a Pop-Tart CAPM. I want you to get the information into your head. Let it marinate. Let it sink in. Don't be a one-night PM who drags himself or herself to the exam hall, passes the exam and comes out and just files away their PMP certification and begins to work on jobs without making change. Be large in your mindset. Think big. Do extreme things in your life. Be a great project manager and help others.